The mainstream media is pouncing on the Elon Musk-Ron DeSantis presidential announcement on Twitter that faced some significant glitches as hundreds of thousands of participants joined the space yesterday evening. I know I had trouble getting in for a little while. First, Fox News hit out at Musk, assuring viewers that their interaction with DeSantis would be televised and would not crash.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Other people pitched in saying that despite claims from the DeSantis camp that the only reason the technical issues happened because it was because they had an unprecedented number of viewers tuning in, and that it was really reflective of how successful the launch was. Folks pointed out that a BuzzFeed video of an exploding watermelon, you know, when they just add rubber bands to a watermelon one by one to see at what point the pressure will cause it to explode, that apparently got more views when that happened back in 2016, when, of course, there were fewer people on the site, etc. AOC also pointed out that when she played the video game Among Us, the computer game, for charity, that she got more people tuning in at that time, kind of exploding the what people felt was maybe a little bit of copium about why exactly this happened. Of course, Elon Musk has also championed the app as a news source for these kinds of announcements, a news source for video. He has said that he is going to advance the technical capacities of the site at the same time that he cut 90% of his staff. And some people saw this as the kind of schadenfreude. Like, he invited this sort of criticism precisely because he hubristically thought that he could, you know, achieve all of these technological feats without the support of the staff that enabled much of this to happen.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Fox kind of taking a jab at Elon and Twitter over this. I think they're going to increasingly view Twitter as a rival organization, as a conservative media organization that is perhaps going to be the home to their rivals at the Daily Wire, their former star host, Tucker Carlson, and the first place DeSantis made the announcement. He was on Fox after, but first he was on Twitter. Yeah, and then obviously we have the Trump factor, Trump making fun of it a lot. I was seeing a lot of, and actually I would put you very much in this category, Brianna. I'm seeing a lot of liberals and left people laughing with Trump at DeSantis. What is going on with that? Trump
has always been a funny guy. He's always been funny. That's why they put him in Home Alone. Mm-hmm. It's why he's appeared in multiple movies in the 1990s. It's why he's in innumerable rap songs. He's always been a cultural figure because he's always been larger than life, bombastic, no holds barred, and has been entertaining to people. I don't think very many people would ever argue that the man isn't entertaining. He was a talk show host before he was the president of the United States of America. And I don't know, I think the contrast, especially with someone like Ron DeSantis, who is known for the opposite quality, who also in the context of Twitter Spaces chose, I think, in retrospect, unwisely, to surround himself by a cast of characters that really came off as yes men, asking him softball questions, which is perhaps normal.
Yeah, I mean, a campaign event is not
it's not adversarial.
Confrontational.
Right, but here's again where Elon Musk sets everybody up. He set himself up saying, I'm the best at Twitter, I don't need these engineers, I can fire everyone, and then you have a technical failing. He sets up Twitter saying this is a free speech place where we're gonna have open discourse, and then people were expecting, whether or not they should have, I heard people over and over again say they were expecting a more confrontational, adversarial series of questions, more like a town hall where there were real questions and not just layups.
Confrontational.
A lot of people. They wanted him to act.
Well, maybe the mainstream media.
No, I don't know how many times I can say this. I was listening to conservative spaces only. I was going into conservative Twitter spaces with high-profile conservatives, some of whom, like Ron DeSantis, and said, I live in Florida and I love him as my governor, but I don't like the way this came off. There's a difference between the kind of questions you would get, let's say, at a CNN town hall. Those questions were asking. There were tougher questions asked of Donald Trump, right?
That wasn't a campaign launch event. Again, there's never been a campaign launch event
Robbie,
where
I don't know that you're hearing my point. My point is that if Ron DeSantis did a typical campaign launch event, there would be none of these expectations. But Elon Musk said, I have Twitter, it's a free speech pillar of our community, that we're going to have an open discourse and dialogue. And then it wasn't an open discourse and dialogue. It was canned questions from people who are obviously already supporting him. And so he set expectations and then undermined the expectations that he set for himself. He didn't meet the expectations that he set for himself. And now, I wasn't expecting it to be especially adversarial myself, because that just seems ridiculous because of a political, the politics of it all. But many people thought it was going to be something different. And the main point I wanted to make about the surrounding himself by yes men was the point you were making about Donald Trump and his charisma. Elon Musk, for all of the things that people like him for, has never been known as a charismatic, funny, dynamic, interesting guy. People respected what he did with Tesla, his ability to grow a business, his perceived intelligence.
I think people find the content he creates, the tweets he creates, to be, they engage with them heavily. It's the most engaged content of all time. Maybe that doesn't extend to his personal warmth to people.
Like what tweets? The memes that he retweets and steals from other content creators? Because he's also renowned for doing that. And I think that what we saw is that when these people step out of the silos they've created for themselves, he literally is the king of Twitter. He owns Twitter. He's the CEO of Twitter. Right. When he steps out of those very controlled contexts, like on the stage with Dave Chappelle, where you can't control the audience reaction when you're getting a real raw response.
But that was not a studio full of Republican primary voters. That's the relevant demographic for whether this is going to be successful. And I'm just, I don't know, but I'm hearing so much conviction from mainstream people who, fine, maybe I guess they, for the moment, don't like DeSantis more than they don't like Trump, or they forget why they don't like Trump, or Trump is funnier and more entertaining. I buy all of that. But I'm just hearing a lot of conviction from mainstream people that this was a disaster and that this is not resonating with Republican primary voters. And they wouldn't know that. They don't talk to Republican primary voters. They think.
I talked to a couple last night, and that's what they said. But that's obviously, anecdotal and not a real survey.
We won't know until people start voting whether this strategy is whether leaning into anti-wokeness. And look, obviously you have to do multiple things, and I agree with you that he totally dodged that question he got on Fox about Ukraine, and that's an important issue, and he needs to be able to speak to the increasing strident opposition to funding this war forever that exists in the Republican Party. Totally, he needs to get better at answering that. I think he's addressed that question better in the past than he did last night.
Yeah.
So he's got to talk about more things, but I think the leaning into the regardless of whether you think it's substantively good politics or good policy rather, it's going to be good politics for the Republican primary. I predict it will be good politics for Republican primary voters.
Yeah, I
think they do care about it, and more than that, it matters so much for creating an army of people who are going to be out there preaching the good news of Ron DeSantis to primary voters.
I think wokeness entertains keyboard warriors at their computers. I think the kind of issues that make people go out and knock doors and fight, the way that Bernie got his volunteer army that was unprecedented to knock doors and fight and got an unprecedented number of low-dollar donations, and in $27 donations managed to outraise everybody else in the country, is because he tapped into what working-class people's priorities really are. It was about health care. It was about job stability. It was about being able to educate their kids. And while I do think
And in the general election, he should do that. But we got to get to the nomination first.
All right. Okay. Bate, I think our former co-host, really put her finger on the pulse of a couple of these issues. With respect to the technical failures, she pointed out that it's not just the tech failed, it's the kind of failure that stems from a kind of arrogance about needing to reinvent the wheel, being smarter than the old-fashioned rubes, hipper than the boomers, above the normies. This is the kind of problem that Elon was supposed to be fixing. And then to the point we're talking about right now about the appeal to the working class, she wrote, watching DeSantis on Fox, I didn't hear anything that speaks to the working class issues I hear about every day. Yeah, they're anti-woke, but it's not nearly as important as protectionist economic policy. Leading with anti-wokeness is asking the working class to defend elite interests.
This is going to be the rare example where you and Batya agree and I disagree. Look, Ron DeSantis, I don't think is an economic protectionist. I don't think he supports economic protectionist policies.
That's right.
You do, Batya does. Economic protectionist policies are important to the left part of the Democratic Party. Certainly there's some interest, I won't pretend there's no interest in them in Republican circles. In some ways, anti-immigrant policies are economically protectionist policies. Substantially, though, I think there are a lot of places where Ron DeSantis, to the extent that there's a new Trumpian kind of economic protectionist agenda, I don't know that DeSantis substantially shares it. I don't know that frankly, I don't know that overwhelmingly the Republican primary voters want that. So he's not going to talk about the issue that you Democrats trying to come in and colonize the Republican Party want you to talk about because they don't agree with that.
It's Donald Trump. It's the anti-war sentiment that we sit here and talk about every day. Look, DeSantis, wait a minute. DeSantis
we're talking about economic protection. That's not anti-war sentiment.
It literally is. If anti-immigration stuff is economically protectionist, and so is bring our troops home, stop spending money on Ukraine, spend it here at home. That is also very clearly an economic protectionist argument.
It's just not at all. That's wrong. That's not economic protectionism.
So I think that you're right, that Ron DeSantis doesn't believe in any of that, and that's why he's going to lose the primary. Because at the end of the day, we have been in a populist cycle. Every time, the more outsider candidate wins in every single race. Obama was perceived as being more outsider than Hillary Clinton. Trump was being seen as more outsider than Joe Biden. At the end of the day, Americans don't want someone who seems like they're aligned with the corporate interests that have been running both parties and the blob. And what Elon Musk and Ron DeSantis and David Sachs are doing by presenting themselves in the way that they have visually, I don't know what's in any of their hearts or minds. But the optics of this is that a bunch of literal billionaires sitting around who have the support of what seems like the establishment of the Republican Party, who's been very frustrated with Donald Trump, who have been pro-war in Ukraine, who have been pro-taxes for the rich, who have been pro-cutting Social Security and Medicare.
Who's pro-war? David Sachs is not pro the war in Ukraine.
Of the Republican Party.
One of the most.
Robbie, I'm describing the core of the Republican Party. And that's what Trump was antithetical to and why he got so much energy. And now all of these people are seemingly having the support of that. When he ducks a question on what he feels like in Ukraine, that signals, oh, I'm actually going to go along with the same old Republican establishment. The fact that his entire pitch leading up to this has been, or the media's pitch about him has been, he's Trump without the complications. The establishment is going to be happier to have a more reasonable Republican back in line. That's code to the working people that liked that Trump was like a bull in the china shop, that things are going to go back to normal and nobody's going to be agitating and fighting the establishment on my behalf. Those are the optics. And I think if Ron DeSantis wants a chance in heck at actually surviving this primary, he has to figure out a way to make himself look a lot less cozy with the very people that have been making Americans' lives miserable since time immemorial.
Elon Musk is one of the most popular among conservative media figure there is. Again, this is Republican primary voters, not like the working class generally. Sounding more like a Democrat is not going to help him win the Republican primaries.
This isn't about Democrat versus Republican, Robbie. And I think you of all people should understand that. This isn't about left-right. This is about top-down. And that Twitter Spaces was the elite of the elite.
We'll see.
All right. Well, Elon Musk invited all presidential candidates to do the same type of Twitter space Ron DeSantis did last night. A very interesting proposition indeed. Someone pointed out that on MSNBC, I believe this morning, a very small, someone I didn't even know had announced their run for candidate presidency, who was polling at 1%, got to sit down on mainstream television. Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. have not gotten the same treatment. So we'll see if this Twitter space forum can create some equality in what is turning out to be an increasingly rigged, shall I say, Democratic primary context. More Rising for you after this.